dry January may be nothing more than a box ticked in the recent past. But I have to admit, AF beers have been piquing my interest for quite some time. So with that in mind, I reckon we keep alcohol-free Thursday as a regular feature. Just, not every Thursday. As today we have a brew I've been trying to get my hands on for the past couple of weeks now. And of course, when I say trying, I do mean trying in the least possible sense. But we have finally succeeded. Because look-see what arrived today. Now, some of you out there will no doubt recognize these famous pattern boxes. And I'm sure there's plenty of future reviews waiting for us in here. So I won't completely ruin the surprise and let you wait it out a little. But as for the here and now, what I will say is today we have yet another dedicated AF brewery. And one that's been making a hell of a noise of late. So I am very excited to welcome to the channel the Mash Gang. Think it's quite safe to call Mash Gangs the new kids on the block, having only commenced brewing during the original lockdown of 2020. And they readily admit they weren't even sure they would continue brewing after lockdown had initially ended. But with the assistance of craft heavyweights Northern Monk and our very own Gypsy Hill, these phantom brewers have established themselves, and in absolutely no time at all, as the AF Brewery. So very excited to finally get my hands on a few cans. But it was this one right here that really put Mash Gang on my radar. A fruity and, by the sound of it, a quite funky creation. Unlucky Charms. A non-alcoholic cereal milk pale. You asked for it, you got it. It's barely even a beer. So if you're thinking about complaining about it on Untappd, stop right now. Seriously, put the can down. And I have no great inclination to complain about anything on Untappd. So knock yourselves out, people. It's all yours. We take an outrageously thick oat cream base with no bittering hops. Slam some vanilla, dry hop with experimental hop HBC 630, which is complex and fruity with sweet fruits and berries like raspberry and cherry, along with sweet candy like esters and lactones, giving it creamy notes of peach and banana. Then conditioned on Fruit Loops, party rings, iced gems, and rainbow drops. Still totally vegan, as we've managed to avoid lactose and gelatin. Yay! And I gotta admit, the can is outrageously beautiful. But what it didn't mention that the website did was the use of the cashmere, which should again further add to those fruity notes, as well as the Dorado. So a little more fruit and just a little bit of extra cream. Perfect for the job here. And as they mentioned themselves there, they're not even using lactose as a cheat here. So it's all old-fashioned vanilla and oats to get the creamy job done. Now, if you're anything like me, you couldn't get enough of this sugary delight at breakfast time. Or, well, any time for that matter. I think it was pretty much my go-to snack of choice. So it was a sad day indeed when they eventually pulled them from the shelves. But as they proclaimed, they heard our silent cries. Well, that, and sod paying ridiculous import prices. Those import charges are reserved for the tree houses and the EQs of this world. So I'm ready to relive some childhood memories. Let's get pouring. So it is, of course, very sweet on the nose. Definitely getting some of those berry vibes. Some of that peach is quite present too. Picking up some of that creaminess. That vanilla is quite present too. It really does have a big bag of sweets vibe to it. So there is a sugary tartness right up top. It is quite heavily carbonated, which is helping bring those notes out even more. And there is an almost sugary cereal vibe to it. They mention Fruit Loops and Ice Gems, and you're kinda getting that feel. Not to mention the all-inspiring Lucky Charms. And there is a real vanilla creaminess subtly in behind too, which is adding again to that cereal vibe that they're going for. And as some of that carbonation is dying away, you're getting a real sharp citrus right up top, real lemon and lime vibes going on. And there is just a subtle bitterness in the finish. And to be fair to it, it isn't nearly as sweet as you might expect it to be. And now some of that carbonation has started to die away. Some of those tropical notes are really starting to make their way up into the top. And they're balancing nicely off those earlier citrus notes. And those milky, creamy notes in the middle almost feel creamy in the mouth. But again, like pretty much all of these AF beers we've tried so far, it does just have a tinge of that sparkling water about it, which stops it from being really full in the mouth. But I definitely think this is the first one we've had so far that's come quite close to replicating the true feel. But I tell you what, I'd pay good money to try a dipper or tipper version of this. And there is almost that milky biscuity feel to it right in the back end, and it does almost leave you with the feeling that you're slurping up the dregs of your cereal bowl. And I've got to admit, now we're down into the beer, it really has impressed some. Not only have we had some development along the way with some of those tropical notes joining those citrus notes up top, but it's the stability of that creaminess in the middle that's managed to carry throughout that's really caught my attention. Now I've got to admit, to stick your beak in, it was an absolute delight. Lots of very fruity notes, peaches and berries right at the fore, but some subtle tropical notes in there too. And there's a lovely vanilla-led creaminess lurking in behind. And once you dive in, that heavy carbonation does give those sweet notes a real tartness right off the top. But once that does begin to die away, you are left with a real treat, as what develops is a super fruity, loopy experience. Right up top, there's all sorts going on. You've got some sharp citrus notes, some very sweet berries and tropical fruits, all before that dissolves into that beautiful creamy middle with strong notes of vanilla and milk biscuit. And it's a creaminess you can almost feel filling the mouth. And along with those sugary candy notes, it really does conjure up those images of the milk left over at the bottom of the bowl. Now, when I first saw this brew doing the rounds online, I was very excited by it. But having sampled a couple of different AF offerings now, my expectations were reeled in just a little bit. But I am more than pleased to say it sure lived up to the billing. Yes, it had that AF carbonated water tinge to it, but it is an AF beer after all, so that's pretty unavoidable at this stage. Maybe one day we will get to a stage where that tinge is completely removed, but until that day, it's difficult to hold that against any of them, just as long as it isn't too pronounced, which it definitely wasn't here. But what is pronounced here was a fullness of both flavour and body, and a well-rounded balance too, which, let's be fair, is fairly rare to find in low ABV or session beers anyway, let alone something you've pulled out of the AF fridges. And this has just hyped me up for trying even more of their stuff. As yes, they were able to hide a lot behind those sweet notes, I am more than confident they can make a real good fist of a more traditional style. And if I was casually keeping an eye out for them before, I am sure making a concerted effort to find them now.